Dear all, welcome to this Roskvit lecture. As part in the series, we are already far in the 20s. Today, I am very pleased with the topic, and I think it's a very, very important topic, especially in these times. And today, again, is a rather tough day after a very rough night in Ukraine, and it's important to keep thinking on a future of the country and of the community, of the people in the country, and that is actually what this lecture is about. The lecture is a proposal. It is a suggestion for you all to think about, to discuss about. So we hope a lot of participation also from your side. I start with something extremely practical. The lecture is translated, will later be also streamed on our YouTube channel. And to be in the right channel, please go to the globe, the little globe, which is on the bottom of your screen. If it's not there, then you have 3 dots saying more. Choose that one and choose the interpretation, the channel of your choice, either English or Ukrainian, and everything we say will be simultaneously translated from one language to the other by, again, thank you so much, Olena Novyadova. I think you pronounce your own name better than I do. Thank again for doing that. So let me start introducing our lead speaker of tonight, which is Marion van Schaik. Thank you so much for being here and introducing this to us, introducing the cultural commons for a resilient Ukraine. The whole notion of a commons is something that resurfaced, but has an extremely long history. It's not just a new thing that have been discussed over the past 10 years, but it has a very long history, and I think Mario, you will dig a little bit into that as well. Mario van Schaik is many things, actually, from a public space researcher, academic, but also very much a practitioner, and a practitioner both from organizing and curating exhibitions, writing and researching, but also at the same time being a textile artist, so also from the maker's side. She has done a lot of projects in Ukraine already from 2015, I think, onwards. And now is like almost half living in Ukraine and in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. So I give the floor to you, and after that I will introduce Anastasia Ponomariova, I'm sorry, who will give a short reflection on your talk and on your lecture. But please, I give the floor to you. And
thank you, Lilette, for this nice introduction, and also thank you for inviting me. I really feel honored. I immediately will start with sharing the screen. I think that's most easy. And saying it must, yes. So you now all see it, and do you see other things also, or is it okay like this?
No, it's perfect. It's a complete full screen presentation.
Brilliant. Okay, well, as the title already says, and Lilette already said, Culture Commons for Resilient Ukraine. I will really only shortly say something about myself, and very shortly because Lilette already did, so that's quite easy. I do indeed strategies as a practitioner, I do research, and I'm a textile artist. I always like to show this picture, especially in Ukraine, because this is part of the Belmore, and almost all architects and urban planners also in Ukraine got this as an example. In the Netherlands, it's an example of how we don't want to have it. And it was very nice. Alexander Anisimov, he recently went and he was amazed because he thought it was so well kept and beautiful. According to Dutch standards, it isn't. And this used to be a very criminal lot with a lot of drug stealing and poverty. And I was involved to change this into a place with a lot of artists who live there and who work there. And while it formerly the intention was to really demolish it, now we realize that it will stay. And it has become more and more one of the important, well, it's a bit of a cliche word, but hotspots in the Bijlmer. And this is all very much about a community, about connections, and about resilience. This is also why I tap on this example. There's other things also, but this one is interesting, I think. Well, this is a book I wrote, a PhD I did on culture venues, and the focus is not necessarily on the culture venues, but also very much on the spaces around the public space and how you make the connection between the building and the public space around. And indeed, I'm a textile artist. A couple of years ago, I made together with Dasha Tsapenko this exhibition, and I'm now working with Darina Pashuta on a new exhibition. I always tell this just to that you know what is my sources. So it's from the one hand, it's my own practice, it's research, it's literature, and it's a practice as an artist myself. For today, the topic is about the Commons for Culture. And originally, it was last year that Rosfried asked me, can you do some research after methods or models which can help, which we can use the public space as a way to reestablish culture connectivity and sense of belonging in Ukraine. And I started to check first the Commons for Culture, and then to check whether it and to research whether it would be a good model. And as a spoiler, so for those who only want the answer to that, they can after this immediately go out, because the answer is yes. It became more and more clear that it's a very good model, and that it's also very fitting into even the DNA and the history of Ukraine. So what I will do is first of all just go a little bit into the whole idea, this destruction, what is happening, that it's not only destruction of buildings, but very much of identity. I will delve into slightly into public space theory, and then go more deeply into the commons and toloka. Finally, I will just highlight case studies I did and have some final reflections. So to give you kind of an idea what you're going to listen to. To start with, this picture, I think, and this slogan, all of you know, or slogan, I don't know, it's a promise, Ukraine build back better and fast. And of course, the question is, what is better and what should we build back fast, and what can maybe wait a little? And this is an important question because there is a kind of a reflex for people to immediately think, okay, we need to rebuild housing, while we also know from many researches that the networks, the community networks are completely disrupted, and that to feel a sense of identity and to feel a sense of belonging, it's very important to be part of an identity and to be part of a network. So although I will never contest that building houses is very important, at the same time, I will always argue that it's as important to work on restriction of culture connectivity, networks, and vibrant community. And that's when the idea of commons can come to the fore. About this identity, we all know the pictures of Mariupol theater has gone all over the world. I'm not sure because part of the audience will be Ukrainian, so for them it's really kind of, oh, there we go again. But for the foreigners, it might be a bit different. I always like to show this picture. It's the Freedom Square in Mariupol. It's being, I think it was 2018 or 19 that it was being opened already after the enormous destruction they already had in 2014. And it was really a sign of resurrection, of strength. And Mariupol managed to, after this really heavy attacks in 2014, when a lot of people fled Mariupol, that after, I think, but I'm not sure about the exact date, but after 2018, 19, somewhere in that time, people started to return to Mariupol. So it was not only, it sounds not good, it was not, but refugees from the Donbas region, but it was also, it attracted new people. And that had very much to do with the quality of the city life and that there was a lot of works on the parks, on the squares, on the seashore. And it won't surprise you, but now it looks like this. And it's even questionable whether it still looks like this. We don't know. This is a picture of, I think, autumn 2022. And what you see, I think it was also Nastya who really pinpointed this very well, is that it's this destruction of identity. It's not only about that the squares or the musea or theaters or libraries or important places are being destructed, but even they are, you could say, covered up with completely new stories, which are other stories. So the Russians rebuilt on the same place a completely new kind of memory or identity to reconstruct kind of another story. So it's very much as we know about the destruction of identity. And there is also some scholars who say, if you really want to make sure that people don't come back, this is the way to do it, to destruct the identity. And at the same time, we also see the resilience. We also know these stories, but I think few of you have seen this one. This is in Kharkiv in winter 2023. I'm not sure whether, yes, I hope you can hear this. Okay, I see Lilette is nodding her head. This is it's a moving small film. It's people gathering at the square, the square, one of these squares in Kharkiv. For everybody who knows it, they immediately know what they are looking at. The background they know, they recognize it, so there is a lot of history. And these are people, locals, who live there, who assemble in the middle of the winter. It's freezing cold, there has been bombings all the time, and they dance on music, Staying Alive, of the Bee Gees. It's to show how resilience can look like and also how important public space can be, but also this is a very, it's more than just a public space. And to explain that, I always use the model of Lefebvre. Lefebvre made the trialectics of spatiality, and he says, and it's followed by many people after him. Maybe sometimes it's different words, but it's always the same type of model. It's that the space, you could say there are three different type of layers and they are all connected. So the perceived one is what you see. What we just saw is the square with the stones and the pattern and the high rise after. The conceived one is what is being told or written about it, or it's sometimes it's also what's in the when it's about theater. It's the expectation which is told in the brochure or something. In this sense, with the one you just saw, for all Ukrainians, they immediately recognize it as this specific a place which was built in Soviet times, and later on the square got another function. There is also kind of a play garden next to it instead of the former statue. So there is a lot of history also. It's all conceived, so we also call it a mental space. So the mental space, so let's say somebody who doesn't know this square sees something else than the one who knows this history. It's so the bricks are the same, but what's in your mental space is different. And then you have the lived space, which is the experience. That's what we just saw, people dancing and singing, dancing together and listening to music. And this is how it's in a, you could say in daily life, what happens can happen at a square and or a public space or whatever. So, but that makes that the whole idea of space, you could say, consists of those three elements. And for vibrant communities, you can see that it's always the mixture of the design. So how is it, you could say the bricks, but also what are the, how is it facilitated? And is it in a way, in such a way that meaningful connections can come to existence? So not just passing by or saying hello, but real meaningful connections, which can lead to shared experiences. So here you see again the three layers: the physical space, the mental space, and the social space. So this is all the time. It's very important to well, to have as a kind of in your mind for the next steps which I take, but also for designing any public space. It's always important that it makes it possible to make the meaningful connections and the shared experiences. Then this vibrant communities, we know that we need them to, especially in those places which are severely hit, but also in places even like Lviv, where maybe war on the surface didn't has such an influence, but there is a total new community who came into Lviv. So everybody has to regroup again, you could say. And so there is also a park, which is now a place for temporary housing. So all kind of logics and the how it used to be is disrupted. And that means that we have to find new ways. And what we then see is that the commons is a way to cope with this. The commons, and I will speak more about what it is, what we mean with the commons, but as a start, just to say, most of the commons, they are initiated because there is a necessity, so there is a shared need, and there is a scarcity, so there is only there's a few of it. And that working together is beneficial to the community. They often develop in times of crisis and in places where people are used to self-government throughout history. You could say in a way that it's in their DNA. And in Ukraine, we have or you know, the principle of toloka. And toloka and commons, they resemble each other. It's both are ancient practices of communities helping each other. So that's kind of the basic, and that's also where it resembles. Toloka is a tradition, a Ukrainian tradition since Cossack times. It disappeared in the Soviet times, but it's now coming back. And it's also what we saw a lot in the immediate reaction to the big invasion in February 2022. There were a lot of community actions immediately to help each other. It were tasks which are too big to do on your own, or for one individual or family, and so we helped each other. Ukrainians helped each other. And it used to be in the small villages, like building a house. You cannot do it in your own, but with the group you can. The commons as such, they go back to ancient times, but the name goes back to the time that the English farmers were herding their sheep on the commons, grounds they shared. And then suddenly the king thought he owned those places, so he started to claim that people had to pay to herd their sheep on this ground. And then, well, there's a lot of things to do about it, but finally it was agreed that there was a kind of a commons where the common ground, literally, where the farmers could herd their sheep, and then they could also share the profit of the profit. It's what the land brought to them. Unfortunately, of course, later on they also had to pay the king, so then it became a different story. But we see also in many other, not only in European, but also in South American countries, you can see that this common way of sharing when there is a scarcity is going back to ancient times. However, there is a difference also, and the commons differ from toloka. The toloka is in how it starts. It's voluntary, and well, without strings attached. It's not necessarily that it starts during a crisis. It can also start because somebody really feels something should be done. But in this period, people naturally come together to help. But as life stabilizes or something is really, the heat is off, so somebody is running, then it can be harder to sustain a project unless there are shared values and responsibilities. And this is actually what commons add. So they add more structure in a way, and more stability by setting clear rules. So it starts sometimes with a very simple kind of basic rule or a simple guideline. It always starts with values, with shared values, but sometimes we also see commons which now really have formal agreements. It helps to ensure that project can last long term and that they adapt to change and they are less vulnerable for, let's change the initiative, let's say the initiator of a project. To make it more kind of concrete, the last, I think, the 3 decades already, there is more and more research being done to the commons, actually as a kind of a reaction or to look for another model than the capitalist and the capitalism. I keep to that word. It's after the collapse of the Soviet Union and there, you could say, the triumph of capitalism, more and more people felt that it was not a good answer and they were looking for different kind of structures and systems and models, and then the commons came to the fore. There is also criticism towards the commons because it's mostly by character, it's small scale. However, we also see, and then especially again in moments of crisis, that suddenly it gives a very good answer. And the fact that it is community driven is then a real kind of a good thing, instead of that it's top down and too much controlled. So lately, well, it started, I think, with Elinor, but also Bollier and a lot of others. They started to try to find a kind of rules or a set of definitions, and they said, okay, there is a kind of agreement that you can define a commons, that it's always starting with a community, that they take control of a shared resource, physical or virtual, and they have a set of self-determined rules. And lately we have seen more and more commons starting on energy. So, for example, people living together in these large housing blocks with a big roof. They put on top of the roof solar panels. They share the benefits of it. So they invest together, they share the benefits of it and take care of their own energy supply. This is also the same situation in some South American villages where they take control of their own water supply. So it's quite often it's now on, let's say, basic resources like energy and water. But recently we saw also more and more developments on the culture shared resources. And one of the most famous examples started in Naples in the crisis of 2008. And there it started with a theater building which was empty. There was no money anymore from the government to sustain it or to do anything. It was a group of artists and actors who started to take control of this building. The government finally agreed, so they let them with the only, how would you say it? Thing they had to, it had to be open for all public, for everybody. And that made it immediately, was kind of made it, the basic was it's open to everybody. The artist took control of the building. They programmed, they did a lot of workshops, and and it was an open community, and they had a set of rules how they organize it. And this one is still going ongoing, and it even led to that on European level, the Culture Commons became as a example of how we can run and culture places, especially in times of crisis. So there's also been some examples after the corona, in the corona period, and so it's kind of a system where the community rules or takes control and has a set of determined rules, and without intervention from other parties. However, often it is needed that government or an owner allows it. So, but this is kind of finding ways. I think I don't know about my time. Lilette, is it still okay? Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, quite good, quite good. You have another 15 minutes or more.
Yes, then I'm good. So what is important to realize when we talk about the comments and what makes it different from, let's say, just a normal enterprise, you could say, or approach, is it starts from a complete different set of value aspects, the paradigm, as we call it. So the profit paradigm takes scarcity as a fact. It's focused on efficiency. It's focused on profit for the individual. It's very much about exchange value, centralized power relations, and monopoly, with the ownership as an exclusive right, and competition is dominant. And the commons paradigm starts with the idea that there is enough if we share, that social relations is the strategy to organize it, that people are social beings and that we are connected, that it is about user value and not exchange value, and it's decentralized and cooperation. And ownership is a right, not an exclusive right, but it is a right, but a right with a responsibility. And cooperation is dominant. And I know that in first sight and also in first hearing comments and communism, it can maybe, you can maybe hear it as if it is the same type of thing, but it is completely different, especially in this paradigm, because the communism was very much a profit paradigm. It was about efficiency, it was about competition, it was about centralized and monopoly, and it was about exclusive rights. And even if it was a collective right, ownership, it was still an exclusive right. And there comes in a very important difference. So it's not about, oh, there we go again, decentralized and cooperation, and we have these endless discussions. That's not the idea of the commons. The idea is that you have not power relations by who owns something, but that you amongst each other share or divide power along what your qualities or your professionality, what you bring in. And that every right is a right with a responsibility. And that makes it really specific, but also different from toloka. Because what is the same with the toloka is that it is based on social relations and that people are social beings and that they are connected. But here, so in the way it's organized and in the way you make the steps from being voluntary to something which can also be sustainable in the long run is precisely in more making more precise these values. And this is also the reason why I think, but I'm running ahead of my conclusion, but why I think for Ukraine, the commons as a model can be very helpful because the toluka is already known and you only, and I do understand that only is not always so simple, but with adding some specific set of rules and a set of values, we can make the step towards sustainability in the long run. For my article, I did some research and I selected some case studies. I won't really go deeply into them, but maybe just to give an idea what it is based on. So, of course, I selected studies on the basic criteria, a community taking control of a shared resource, and through a set of self-determined rules. And I added some specific ones. This was also because I started this study for on behalf of Rosquith, and my background is always in the cultural strategies. So it was related to public space, outside or inside, and actually also culture or culture use, geographically spreading throughout Ukraine and time-wise spread over different periods of crisis after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Also to see how sustainable it was. And the last one is that I also concluded that that were only cases where I personally have been or worked. Because and even then, because I don't speak Ukrainian, sometimes it's still questionable whether I really have I really hit the basics. But then Nastya comes in and she will, and not only Nastya, other Ukrainians, and they help me to say, you should question this. This is also not meant, also the case studies, not as a kind of these are comments or this is true or not true, but much more as a kind of a research. What did I come across upon, and if already me, because I came immediately to a list of like 20 or 25 cases that could be interesting, then it's for sure that there are many more in Ukraine. Well, this was my selection to also make it kind of that it could be that it wasn't too much. And if you look at the map, you can see I try to have it more or less all over Ukraine. And in this, there is also, it started in different periods. I think the one who's most genuine a common is Urban Space 100. And I think most of you all know it in Ivano-Frankivsk. It started after Maidan in 2014. So it started after a crisis. It started with a feeling, with an urgent need of a group of citizens of Ivano-Frankivsk. They really felt we should do something about our, in this case it was urban planning, about how about our living space around us. And they started with a small group, and quite soon already they developed a specific set of rules, and later on they built it on this specific set of rules. So also who can be partner, or it's not called partner, but who can be member. It's Urban Space 100. This 100 is the number of members, and who can be member, and what is that all those members have a say in the development. What's also interesting of this case is that they share let's say, the benefits and immediately invested again in the commons, in the urban space 100. So it's financially it's self-sustaining. And it started in 2014, so it now has been for 11 years. So I dare to say that's also sustainable. And of course, it's still developing. And of course, it's sometimes under challenge. But this is, I would say, always. For Mushika Nova, I hesitated a bit because I'm not so sure whether we could really say it's a common or that in the end it's a commercial enterprise. But it's still why I like to add it. It started earlier in 2008. It's a region in Bessarabia. It's actually a collection of 5 small villages, and it started to go back to the old traditional ways of earning life and combined it with a new one, which is tourism. And a lot of old inhabitants moved back after the collapse of the Soviet times when they were allowed to go to this area again. And those all share in the profit which is happening, and they invest also. So it's growing. Well, these are cases closure in Kiev and maybe wooden lace is more interesting because it's cultural heritage. And where people really saw that it was going, that it was lost, and they started this as a project, but also with a specific set of rules to restore the wooden lace in Chernihiv. They had to do a lot of bargaining with the owners, and there were specific rules and by which they would restore the wooden lace. And in 2022, a lot of this has been destroyed. And after that, this group even became even bigger and bigger, because then the need was felt even more urgent that we should restore this as part of the cultural heritage. Well, this one, Flip City, was a project I worked on together with Fulco in Solidar. It had all the ingredients to become a very nice commons. However, it started with a community, and unfortunately, 2 months after, it was the big invasion was, and I think half a year after, so no, later. But anyway, Solidar is now completely occupied and destructed. Maybe the interesting part of it is also it started after here also a crisis then, because Solidar used to be on a spot which was a road, a go-through road to the south of Ukraine, but also to Georgia. And then because of the war in 2014 started by the Russians and the occupation, suddenly it became an end city. It became a dead-end street, you could say. And that made that Solidar had to reinvent their identity. And they were really working on that and trying to make the mines from salt mines only to a touristic attraction. But so much for that. Reflection on the cases, for me, working on it more and more and getting feedback also from Alice, I realized that these comments are, why could I find so many cases, and maybe the one is more fitting or fitting more in this commons model than the other. But this is fitting so well because it goes back to the DNA, the toloka DNA. So this is what we know from other research, that it can be growing and flourish better in countries or in cities where there is this historical DNA. What I also saw is that they are very resilient, and that mostly has to do that it's not the initiative of one person or who is the initiator and then all the time is the one who's the one and only, but that it's about a community, and that it is a community which also immediately set up some rules or values together. And I think this is also very specific, is that they are relatively financially independent. Of course, this is also the case why the European Council, European Council? I'm not sure now, it was not the Council. But let's say Europe embraced this approach because when culture commons can be relatively financial independent, they are also less vulnerable for all political kind of changes. And we all know that that's very endangered at the moment. So the more independent the culture can be, the more stable also your identity and your resilience can be. So to then bring it to the urban planning, because of course there is the link with Roskvit, I can conclude that there is a very strong connection between public space and the commons. In Ukraine, there is an abundance of public space, and so there is no scarcity. So we could use it, but we have to use it in a more, how would you say it? Not more, but in a smart way. Think about how you can make, and then you come to in the design to make it in a way that it's inviting for making the connections, and that it's about sharing the experiences. But so there is, as a basic ingredient for urban planning, we know there is abundance of public space. We know that commons are successful in Ukraine, and we know that there is this strong connection. So I would say then it's one of the tools it can be for urban planning to really bring, or how would you say it, help in reaffirming a sense of identity, not help. To bring about or to reaffirm a sense of identity, to regain control over one's life, and to search for the thread of continuity, which is so important for the vibrant communities and the resilience of a community. So this was it. Thanks for your attention. And I think I now give the floor to Lilette or to Nastya. I'm not sure. That's up to you.
Thank you so much. That's really, really interesting. And I already have a lot of questions, and there are already from the audience as well. So we will get into a longer discussion. But first, we asked Nastya to give a reflection on this with a little bit of preparation of reading your article to have another view on this, and a view on this from somebody who is an architect and co-founder of a Ukrainian NGO, Urban Curators, and also of the Kohati initiative. And I think I could say that all the work you do relate very much to these kind of ideas on how to collectively work and own, but also have done so much in practice that you can also see the downsides. I remember some discussions at some point with the Kohati project, which is about housing for IDP communities. What is the switch? And I also want to bring that up later with Mayo, when you have to change from, or maybe you don't have to change from it, but if you go from a voluntary basic to start paying people, so when money comes into the game, all these kind of issues. But first, Anastasia, please, you take the floor.
I would like first to thank Mario for this very profound lecture, for this very profound reflection, and a very important approach for me as a practitioner in Ukraine, including the idea of commons I'm using it, and it is extremely important to see this experience from a side, if I may, and it is very, very important both for now and for the future. And as a person who really is trying to apply the idea of commons, I think I have been doing it for 10 years in Ukraine. I need to say that, yes, this process, when we need to evolve from toloka to commons, this process is very difficult. Yes, it is possible, it is efficient, but there are a few challenges along the way. Both for practitioners and for theorists, so that I would like to encourage both categories to go on without stopping. And so these challenges shouldn't be stopping you from generating similar projects in Ukraine. You need just to be aware of what it is all about and have the courage to move on. So my own experience shows that the key challenge is that people, when they try to enter the commons initiative, they are losing part of their identity because they start working as a team member inside a team. And unlike toloka, they are becoming, they are getting the responsibility for following the rules which they have formulated. And so toloka is very enlivened. It is very vibrant. I love these projects because, you know, people who are working in a toloka, they are working alone, resolving a specific task, but they are not burdened by the rules. They are doing what they can do best, and they can invest as much time as they want. And as soon as they get tired, they can stop and they can switch to other tasks. So, and this is the key challenge when you evolve into a team member. You need to learn also to start working with the tasks, maybe which you don't like, but which must be done. And so it also is more prolonged in time because teamwork, it's always about cooperation, about covenants, about agreements. And so it requires more time, and people who are evolving from toloka to commons team, they can see that the process and the result become equally important, and the people are losing this grasp of their own participation, and the result will be growing, dwindling away, let's say, and it will be shrinking. And so it is very important that the experienced team members should support such novices. And so because toloka shows results, and commons show both the process and the results. And to manage these projects, you have to invest more resources, I mean commons, and so you need team members with similar experience so that the new team members will not get lost and will understand that this is how it should be. And my own experience also shows that this commons approach is not always the best one, especially in times of war, because sometimes quick results are very important and there is no time to reach agreements, and instead we can simply, you know, make a solution. We need an authoritarian leader in a good sense who will guide the team towards the result. And especially it is important when we are rebuilding critical infrastructure. Of course, this is not good for public space projects, because public space per se must be vibrant, must be inclusive, but Commons, unfortunately, is not efficient for all sorts of problems, especially in times of war when we need quick solutions. And the last comment I would like to make today after this lecture, uh, and I think it was very fruitful to compare the communist values and the commons values. And here, it was a very good watershed between the strengths and weaknesses, let's say. Of course, Ukraine has the experience in living in communal housing, which was very painful during the Soviet times, and it was not voluntary. This is the most important thing about it. It was imposed. And so we still have this experience and we're working with it. And quite often we as people who appreciate commons as an approach, we need to change the mindset of those people. I can give you an example. We were interviewing IDPs who live in all sorts of conditions, like sharing apartments with some relatives or staying in shelters, very old ones. And they have compared this living experience in a shelter with the communal living during the Soviet times, and they refused to cooperate with us in the projects of shared spaces when we proposed like a common kitchen or common garden projects, because after 2 years of living in a gym with dozens of other people with their pets, people flatly refused to share anything. They used this term, I'm ready to share only walls which are going to divide us. This was what they would say. And so we understood that, people needed some private experience, to inhale, exhale, and then you can approach them once again for shared spaces, for commons, because, well, you need to give them time because they have had a lot of negative experience in communal living, and it is very difficult to again plunge into commons without any transitionary period. So I would like to emphasize here that quite often things which we believe are right will not always be acceptable for the community. So we need to research here, we need to study, survey, we need to learn about the target audience, their needs and their expectations.
Thank you. Very, very relevant three topics you brought up here. Maybe we can go a little bit further into them. I would say one by one. Or Mario, do you have one that you want to pick out specifically to react on?
Well, maybe more in general already is I completely agree that commons is not the answer for everything. And also completely agree that commons is not always so toloka as a let's say a model is in many moments much more also convenient. So it's therefore I don't see it as let's say the wonder method which can solve anything, but it can be very helpful, especially in cultural spaces and in public spaces, in reconnecting and restoring this vibrance in communities. But the examples you mention are so evident and clear why you shouldn't and certainly shouldn't impose it. But it's much more so it's meant as an maybe this is how I presented it first, as another tool in the toolbox of an urban planner.
Mm-hmm. Can you expand a little bit on this? I was intrigued by this first observation, which is about becoming a team member, and in that also some responsibilities come with that, and some, yeah, let's say you have to, you take it on you, and then also you have to, let's say, perform on it. And is that something that you can overcome that feeling, or will that be a natural selection of people? Do you have experience how it works in the commons, that could be not a problem, or perceived as problematic?
Is that a question to me or to Nastya?
To you. Yeah.
Well, but there is always, of course, how would you say it? There is something in between the ideal and the practice. But in the ideal, it's like this: is that you change role or tasks accordingly to what you are good at. But in practice, of course, there's always tasks which need to be done, and nobody wants to be good at, or nobody wants to do them. And sometimes there's also sides of working together on a commons, which are not always something which you, although, this is the must-do type of things. And yes, there are always, so the example in Naples is one where they quite good manage to deal with this, but this is mostly by changing responsibility. So it's not one person who is all the time the same responsibility, but especially those which are kind of the one you don't feel at ease with, they make kind of turns in it. So there are examples, but it's definitely it's I don't know whether it's a loss of identity, as you called it, but it's definitely that let's say so what's going with it is the responsibility that can be felt as a burden. It's completely different from just today I like to work and tomorrow I don't. So that's complete. I recognize that. The idea is that the profit out of it outbalances the part which you give away, but then you should feel the profit. And of course, the profit is, because it's not about profit, it's about use or value. So the value it has for you, at the moment that you cannot feel the value, or that you don't perceive the value, then it can become problematic.
Just go, Nastya.
Маріо, я дуже рада, що ти
Mario,
почала
thank
говорити
you. And it's great that you have started talking about the positive things, working together of the commons model, because I actually tried to downshift it a bit, maybe, and I talked about the challenges. So, because here we are talking about the relay of responsibility, which you also mentioned, which is a feature of the teamwork, and when you can, for instance, to make a team resilient, really substitute somebody. But one thing which is very possible here in this project, in this format, is to resolve some really, really core challenges, which are absolutely impossible for leadership projects. So the commons is the best instrument to resolve the challenges which are multidisciplinary, which require different perspectives, because this plethora of foci gives more depth to the solution, and it could be a very good advocative argument for the project of commons. So it is very innovative, and so it is very, very strong as an instrument in this respect.
Maybe if I may say one more thing, because it's interesting that I completely agree with you as we talk about the type of project you and I are talking about, which are more in, well, in the community and cultural building and community building sphere. However, in ancient times and also today, many comments are on resources like water and energy, and that's very clear. And then but then also the shared value is very clear, because then, I mean, now we have to at least I don't know. Yeah, I do know how it's in Ukraine. It's complicated as it is to get your energy and to have the meters and etc. And you pay it to some company. And then you pay, and you pay a fixed amount, even if you didn't use that much your heating or whatever. While this whole idea, what you see more and more now is that then buildings where people have this shared roof, and then you have, so the shared benefit, the shared value is quite clear. You own your own heating or your own energy system. So the necessity is clear, the scarcity is clear, and the shared value is clear. So that can also be, but still then you have the task that need to be done, like the administration and that type of thing. So there indeed you see then, and I saw a question of Alex about this. In this mechanism, it's quite often indeed that the associations, it depends very much on the model. But then, so if you have the structure that you have a group of owners and they together are in a juridical entity, and they decide to do the solar panels, that, for example, then it's quite easy. If you have to deal with an association which is owning a lot of buildings, then of course you have immediately a different discussion. And then it's indeed, then the association should let you do this. But then, so the shared thing is very focused. It's only one thing. It's energy, it's solar panels. But then often the construction in which you have to deal with is more complicated. Although with the Kohati, it was also very complicated to get the municipality with you.
Yeah, maybe I read a little bit of that question because I'm not sure it's visible for the attendees. So it's a question by Alex McDonald, which is indeed tuning precisely at this aspect of shared solar panels on roofs and the possibility of have condominium associations that manage even multi-story buildings. That was what you were referring to. But his follow-up question is: do you see opportunities for policy or kind of reform that would support your vision of the commons? So how could policymakers play a role there? And that leads then immediately to the broader topic that I wanted to bring in, and that is the role of local governance, maybe in this case most of the time, in general. Is it just because you mentioned at some point just to give space to facilitate, or is there more facilitation than just like, is it handing over, or is it setting rules, or could you
Yes.
a little bit about that? Maybe you also from your research in other places, and Nastya also from her experience with Kohati and other projects.
Well, for the interesting is that the example of solar panels, it's happening now so many places that you even can get templates and kind of instructions in how to. This is, I think it's Bollier who has his website, and where you can, with a couple of clicks, you come to links where you can find a kind of a route. Yeah, the question is interesting if there's opportunity for policy to reform this, because you could also say, so this is a little bit depending on where you stand in what you think the government should supply, because you could also say a good government, whatever a good is, but should supply the basic things like energy and water for free or for very low cost or something for inhabitants. So as soon as you say you are going to make a policy to make it possible for communities to arrange it for themselves, there is a kind of there's a flip side to it, because then it also can become that the government is sitting back and say, well, good communities and citizens, they organize it themselves. So I think we need to be kind of careful in that so this is also why I will never say the commons is the solution for everything, but it can be a very good solution in specific cases and in times of crisis. But it's also, I think, what is important for governments, and it's indeed mostly local governments, is to facilitate. So, and it can be in facilitating in, for example, as in Naples, the people could use the building. It can be in facilitating, in giving vergunningen, legal requirements that you work along, so that you help a community, because almost all initiatives for commons are something which is not a regular kind of process. So you will always do as a community something which doesn't fit in the whole picture, and then the local government can help to make it possible. And I think Nastia can really illustrate this very well with the Kohati example, how a local government can help or can obstruct.
Ну, в Україні зараз, я нагадаю, існує не так
Right.
багато
I would
видів
like to
власності.
remind you that we have few formats of ownership in Ukraine. This is private, municipal, and the common property is very rare, and it is practiced only by agricultural cooperatives. And this is one of the models which we wanted to test in Kohati, this cooperative housing. And we approached legal consultants who told us that this type of property was nowhere to be seen in our legislature. And it was very interesting for me to research why it is like that and how it happened. But presently, the fact is that we have agricultural cooperatives which merge together with, energy cooperatives, but it is working with land, and there is an urgent need for our national government, maybe, for our legislature to return this type of ownership and to promote it so that other projects can use it. So when we talk about Kohati, I would like to remind you that this is a charity foundation who are constructing and rebuilding a housing in cooperative way. And it is very difficult for us to find some transparent property ownership model, because it is not clear for the authorities why a charity foundation should do this at all, and what values we have as a cooperative property owners, and why we would like to share the property and share the responsibility. And we can see quite a lot of gaps in our laws, both in terms of housing and management and social support. And we can see now that there is a need, and we're doing it actually to bridge this gap, and this is what our charity fund is doing. We would like to become a precedent for the reform at the national level, because not all organizations would like to take risks the way we are willing to, and we hope that our case can be helpful as a precedent for the reform to take win, to show that yes, it is possible to make such projects and to use the commons instrument in them.
Yeah, you always need people who stick out their necks to get some things done as pilots and examples of, let's say, proof of a method. I am looking also at the Q&A or the chat if there's somebody from the audience who wants to step in or ask a question. We had some applause on nice examples in the chat of energy communities. But are there more maybe questions or suggestions or other examples? Don't see them at the moment. I have one more, and that is talking about the size of a commons group. How large or small is there a certain amount of people that can be involved, and or can it grow like endlessly, infinitely? Not infinitely, but
It's
Я
an
можу
interesting.
одразу згадати той приклад, який
I would like to recall the example Mario quoted from Ivano-Frankivsk.
можна вважати, що така кількість людей
100 people.
може
So it is absolutely manageable as a group of people, and a similar model, a franchise
була в Києві.
we had in Kiev. It is Urban 500. It closed recently, but I don't think the number of people involved was the key reason. I cannot make conclusions here, but I think we can make a careful conclusion that yes, this kind of number of people, the big one, can affect management. Maybe it is one of the factors which is not very favorable. So I don't have a specific answer, but I think that I can quote examples which can be of help here. Of course, our team is not that big, no. Up to 20 people is very manageable, and we are gravitating towards horizontal management, and more or less successfully we are doing it. I cannot imagine how we are going to grow because we don't have any tested guidelines for our work as a bigger team. So new people are going to contribute new ideas to our work. I don't know how it is going to affect the speed of our realization because we need results, as you understand.
Mario, anything to add on this?
Well, it's a nice question. The strength of most of the commons is that it's not too big. I mean, because then if you really need to feel that it's a shared necessity and that you share the value, then there is a kind of a limit to it. But this, I'm not so sure whether I pronounce it correctly, this Veteransky Kurin is a project which involves many more people. So it's a little bit about I think it's very different all the time. What is the topic? So and that makes more the limit. And for example, what happened in Naples, that because of the success of the theater, I think in the end something like 15 or 20 buildings all have become commons, but the one more as an educational commons and the other, so they all have their own kind of need and scarcity, but they all work along the same method. So it's not one big common, but the one it's kind of the one looks at the other and thinks, this is an interesting model. So I think that the most important of the commons is whether it's what Nasya said. This is a franchise in Kiev, and it became Urban 500. can it be copied? And I think there is the difference comes in. I think it can be very easily copied as long as the topic is something like water or energy, which is kind of clear cut, you could say. It becomes more difficult when it's about housing, as in the Kohati, because it asks much more knowledge of local regulations of local communities, and it's even more complicated when it's about culture commons, because then there's always the let's say the artistic product, or how if you would like to call it product, I don't like to call it like that, but kind of the outcomes and the share and the inspiration which you share, which is more it's more difficult to replicate, and it's more individual and subjective. So it's very much depending on the character.
Yeah, also maybe more organically grown.
Yeah.
And from that, hard to replicate. One more, the last one again, coming back to the ever hot topic of money. Where is finance coming in? Because at some point, Mario, in your lecture, you said it's a financially very solid model in the sense of being independent financially. But how and in what way more than other systems? And what if money comes in? How do you have to regulate that? Do you need money, or is it, how do you get it?
Well, then if you go, let's say, to the energy, then it's kind of you get the energy, and you collect your energy on your own, and you share it amongst each others. And money comes in if you have more than you need as a group. But then you can make agreements about how you can use this what is more. But mostly, no, not mostly. In other cases, in the culture commons, money is of course a topic, because then people need also to live from something, or to, and this is also why I'm always a bit hesitant. From the one hand, it's a very good model, but it should not be, at least in my opinion, the kind of way out for governments who don't want to invest anything in culture or in affordable housing. So and then the thing where this is most important, and this is also for Urban Space 100, they collected within a group money to buy a space. And at the moment they had the space, they found ways to earn money with the space, but in a way which was belonging to their identity, was fitting in their identity. And that's the same with Formashika. That's the same with Closer. Although Closer, some people say it now developed only in a nightclub with people using a lot of drugs. So then you are in another situation, but it's not how it started. And it's also not, if you ask the one who initiated and who still run the place, they really look at it differently. So, but for them, indeed, money is an issue, but it's what's interesting for the wooden lace, for example. So this is the group, they restore the wooden lace of the houses. The owners don't have to pay, of the houses don't have to pay for it. Often you have more owners of a house, or it's even not clear who owns the house. Many owners objected at first stage because they don't want to have any fuss with the house, or to make it, you could think, they make it more beautiful, they give it back the old cultural heritage, but many of them really see it as something they don't want. But then it's within the group who works for it that they make websites, and I think they even make t-shirts or whatever, and that's how they get income to do the work. So they sell in a way as a souvenir or commercial product the wooden lace of Chernihiv, and by that they finance the work they do. And it's interesting, they bought lathe cutters, so it's not handwork anymore, it's with a machine, and it makes it, of course, faster.
Nice. In the meantime, we have a question about a suitable legal or administrative structure for registering a comet. Is that there? Could it be an association, or would it be a foundation, or does it have a specific legal form in any country that you know of?
Well, I think it's really very different per country. So in the Netherlands, the foundation is the most easiest. Sometimes you have a corporation, but that's legally more complicated, although it's better fitting to the ideal or the model. And it's also because I think in Ukraine, it's also like this, as soon as you like to pay something or you want to get paid for something, you need a legal entity. But what type of it? This is really dependent on the national situation. For Ukraine, I don't know, but maybe Nasya, you do.
Насправді,
Actually,
фонди,
you said foundations. Charity foundations. This is not the best solution when you need to have resources on your balance, because this is not what foundations do, because foundations usually distribute funds. They take resources from one place and then distribute them to other places, let's say to people who need them, to the beneficiaries, to the community who you need to help. But I don't know, it's difficult for me. In Ukraine, foundation is not the best format. Maybe a hybrid model can be a way out. So which would be a synergy between all sorts of organizational formats. For us, I really say we lack the cooperative model for this shared property, for communal property around a big resource, which you can put it in your books and then maintain it, like, for instance, solar panels, things like that. So it's not possible for a charity foundation to have it in the books.
That's also interesting. So that could be also on a list of to-dos for legal advisors to help in structuring a model for that.
And this could really be a policy. This really could be a policy thing.
Exactly.
While in the Netherlands, an NGO is kind of a foundation is completely different from how it's looked upon in Ukraine. It's as long as you don't, if you don't make profit, then you can make a foundation. So that's the only rule. It's not about profit. So this is why for us the answer to everything is always the foundation. But in Ukraine, that's completely different, I know by experience. But then, indeed, policy making could be very important to facilitate juridical kind of other juridical kind of constructions.
To make it possible. Yeah. I think we can come to a conclusion. We need to finish also at 7:30, so we are quite good in the time, and everybody can continue the evening in other ways. I think it was super inspiring. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. Also for the audience, if you're interested in this, the text of Mario is at the moment being translated in Ukrainian, which is for some maybe easier to read, and will become accessible on the Roskvit website, so stay tuned. That is part of a program of having some more text translated, including also some videos on certain topics. So apart from the lecture series, We will have translations in Ukrainian, more videos, video lecture format, and the third one is that our library, which a lot of people don't know actually, but which is on the Roskvid website, it's easy to find, but that is being restructured also at this moment. So it will be easier to find specific topics or books or themes through the new library system. That all will be launched in the coming weeks, so stay tuned on that. Also, if you don't have it yet, please sign up for our newsletter, because then you can keep following all those lectures, new things on the, let's say, knowledge front of Roskvid. Thank you very much. Hope to see you next time, and have a great evening all.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thanks, Elena.